Okay.
Okay, now.
There we go.
Now.
All right. Welcome everybody to our Feminist and Struggle forum on a really important topic about the indoctrination of children into gender identity ideology in schools and the best ways to combat that. We have two incredible speakers today. One, I'm going to start with Carol Dancero. Am I saying your name right, Carol?
Yes. Yes, very
Okay.
good.
Good. Carol is an advocate, organizer, singer, feminist, mother, and grandmother. She spent decades advocating for environmental protections, including protections for farm worker families exposed to toxic pesticides, for which she and her organization received the Washington State Trial Lawyers Association's Public Justice Award. Carol's been fighting gender identity ideology since 2019 and sees the movement we are building on that issue as central to achieving the system change needed for a just and sustainable world. And she's been doing amazing work in Seattle. So take it away, Carol.
Hi, everybody. It's very nice to see you. I am now going to try to share my PowerPoint. Can you all see that?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, amazing. Wonderful. Okay. You know, the gender identity indoctrination of children in our schools is much more extreme and aggressive and destructive than even most of the people fighting gender ideology realize. In schools across the United States, kids are being bombarded with gender identity messages from all sides, from the earliest days of kindergarten, if not before, through 12th grade, in big cities, rural towns, you name it. So vast numbers of children are emerging into adulthood each year, thoroughly brainwashed, not just with respect to the core beliefs of gender ideology, but also in terms of their mindsets about reality, biology, civil rights, what it means to fight for justice. Here is how the indoctrination works. It starts with books that are read to kindergarten through fifth graders. And there are so many of these. Hang on, I'm getting used to this. Oh, there we go. 5-year-olds meet Thomas the Teddy, who one day declares, can you all see the whole slide?
Yep.
Okay, good, because it's kind of blocked on mine. In my heart, I've always known that I'm a girl, Teddy, not a boy. And the children in the book immediately agree that this boy is now a girl, and teachers are encouraged to stress that good friends instantly agree and never ask questions. Wait, I'm just moving my bow tie, says Tilly the Teddy. I've always wanted a bow in my hair instead. So sexist messages like this are just rampant in the gender identity books read to kids. Take, for instance, All I Want to Be, which claims to be for all children in celebration of all who you are, but actually it celebrates rejecting part of yourself, your sexual anatomy. So this particular child, the grandmother for this girl, tries to get her into a dress, and the girl announces, my new name is Pete, and the grandmother agrees. Apparently, this girl can only avoid wearing a dress if she is a boy. Being all of me entails rejecting her female anatomy. Every page in this book is just awful. In this page, a child says, don't call me he, don't call me she. Don't assume who I must be, because I don't feel like just one of these. Notice the subtle but powerful message delivered by the word just in that sentence. Children who don't deny their sex are just girls or just boys. They're somehow limited, whereas so-called non-binary children are freer, cooler. They're more themselves. In this book, children meet a boy who says he's a girl, a child who is neither a boy nor a girl, and a whole slew of other kids who are cheerfully rejecting their bodies. Children are taught that doctors guess whether a child is a boy or a girl and get it wrong all the time. Here is a 5-year-old telling his family that he's actually a girl, and since 5-year-olds know much more than adults, they instantly say, oh, okay. Oops, Ruthie was a girl all along. This book spends a lot of time talking directly to the children, saying, you know, you should go on a gender journey and figure out who you are. Your feelings are real about gender. Listen to your heart, this character on the left says. And of course, what they really mean is disregard the physical reality of your body. The person on the right has the words, "You are okay exactly the way you are," above them. But that's really cynical, because actually the trans-identifying kids in this book all are not okay with exactly the way their bodies are. Many are going to remove their sexual anatomy or alter it. It feels good to be yourself, doesn't it? The book concludes with. But of course, the message is yourself doesn't include your body. Yes, it is important to spend time figuring out whether you're a boy or girl or something else, children are told. In Seattle and in other places, when the book A House for Everyone is read, kids get to work on this chart, and they have to record the so-called gender identities of the characters in the book and the gender expression, how they're showing their gender identity. So examples of gender expression include things like hairstyles and clothing, but also things like running and building with Legos and spelling. I mean, why do any of these things have anything to do with whether you are seeming to be a girl or a boy? And what isn't an expression of gender? Why in the world is it valuable for kids to spend time obsessing on this superficial nonsense? And how does it make any sense that short hair is listed in the first column as a gender expression for a girl, and it's listed in the second column as a gender expression for a non-binary person, and in the fourth and fifth columns as gender expression for a boy identity? All of this is completely irrational, foisted on kids as if it makes sense, undermining their critical thinking skills. There is just an endless supply of these books, more coming out every day, all beautifully illustrated. And I wish I had time to go into detail about how these books get into small children's brains, instilling false information, sexist stereotypes, and destructive ideas, and how emotionally manipulative they are. I will just, however, because of time, show you pages from these two books, which are part of a slew of recent books which feature small Black children announcing they're the other sex. So in this book, Calvin is a small girl who says she's a boy. And in this picture, you see her just really sad and worried that the next day at school, kids are going to not refer to her as he. So any child is going to identify with Calvin. And for a happy ending, they're going to want the kids to call this child he. This is manipulation. And in the other book, Born Ready, everybody in the book agrees that the little girl on the left is a boy because she says so. And there's only one person who doesn't, and it is her big brother, who says, you can't become a boy, you have to be born one, which is absolutely right. But does he get praised for this, for his honesty and courage? The mother says, not everything has to make sense. This is about love. So if you don't go along with the anti-science insanity engulfing your little sister or your friends, you are not loving. This is as manipulative and anti-science as it gets. The emotional manipulation is unbelievable in these books. So, primed by all of this stuff happening in elementary school, in middle school and high school, kids get the official gender identity lessons. It's glommed onto sex ed, to the sexual orientation. So it's called Soji, which makes no sense, as probably everybody on this call knows. So kids are required to memorize the various mantras and beliefs of gender identity, the insane circular definitions. A woman is a person who identifies as a woman, that destroys that word as having any use whatsoever. They have to memorize and regurgitate this. They have worksheets to do. They see videos, including ones by amaze.org. Go online and force yourself to watch some of these things. They are just horrifying. And the other sex ed units are equally problematic in pushing gender identity. It's not just the official gender identity lessons. Puberty, reproductive anatomy, pregnancy, they're all taught with the teachers never using the words man, woman, male, female, boy, or girl, or almost never doing that. And they're doing this because they want kids to believe that men can have babies, that a penis is a female organ if the person whose body it is says they're a man. They use terms like a person with ovaries, someone could get pregnant, someone could give birth. This is from the 2nd grade in Austin. It's the reproductive system of someone with a vagina. Someone. Is this a boy or a girl? Is it male or female? The teachers don't tell children. They're being denied basic understandings about biology. Anatomy is shown with diagrams like this that are not labeled as male or female. Whoops, what is that? Okay. So in addition to all this, every class is seen as an opportunity to indoctrinate. Teachers are encouraged to do this, and a lot of teachers are graduating from college, where they're indoctrinated. So, especially in science, which is problematic since this stuff is so anti-science, you will have in the middle of a lesson on, say, stereotypes, like in New Jersey, suddenly the teacher veers into gender identity and brings up the genderbread person and talks about that. At the end of a lesson on things about like fatty acids, kids have to answer these questions.
You're freezing, Carol, for some one.
Name 2 mods, name 2 different acids. I'm freezing. Okay, well, you can still see the slide, right? Are you all looking at the slide? Questions
Yeah.
students must answer in biology class?
Carol, if you
Okay.
turn your camera
And then
off,
suddenly,
you might get better reception.
turn the camera off. I'm worried that if I get out of this, I can't get in.
Oh,
You can
okay.
see the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think I'm going to just stick with this. I have a bad feeling of getting out and getting back in. So anyway, they end with, why is working against cis normativity important? So, this stuff is just insane. In the middle of a class, students will be forced to watch videos like a Teen Vogue video featuring Chase Strangio, a trans-identifying female, who says a trans woman is a woman. She's not tricking anybody. All of her body parts, including her penis, are female body parts. So you're still seeing the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So on top of all this, so this is what's happening in the schools. And on top of all of that stuff, there's stickers and flags flying and all the forms students fill out, pull this stuff. There's trans days of remembrance, which pretend that there's disproportionate numbers of murders of trans identifying people. There's extra piles of gender stuff sent home to families during certain weeks. There's the gender sexuality clubs, which basically funnel people into trans identities. Activist teachers trainings, homework leads kids to social media. There's even on-site clinics that push this stuff. And perhaps most importantly, there's affirmation only, which means that if a child comes to a teacher and says, I am now the other sex, the teacher has to immediately say, why, yes, you are. And so does everybody else in the school, forfeiting their rights. And a lot of these schools actually force the teachers to keep parents in the dark about their kids at school transitions if those parents have any doubts about gender identity. There's 10 million students across the United States in districts where they keep the transitions at school secret from the parents. So kids are hit with all this stuff at school and outside of school. This is my library this summer, a whole wall with all the trans flags and a whole bunch of books for kids about how you should become trans and free buttons, pronoun buttons. So the schools should be helping kids be able to resist the propaganda on the internet and out in the world, the indoctrination, but they are part of the indoctrination. They are leading it. Indoctrination being a way of teaching people certain beliefs without questioning them. The schools are doing all the indoctrination techniques, repetition, no other information is allowed, no other views, punishment if you don't go along, rewards if you do, and emotional manipulation. So what does all this lead to? It leads to children who believe the tenets of gender identity and have been groomed in all sorts of other ways as well. And we absolutely have to fight this. We have to fight it because of the unspeakable harm to the vulnerable children who are fed to big pharma and the biggest medical scandal, I believe, of all time, having their bodies destroyed. We also have to act against this because of the damage to all the other children. They're being denied accurate information, taught sexist stereotypes, all sorts of other things that are problematic. And this has implications for our society, which I'll get into later. There is a fight back, and it's big. One of the biggest problems we have is that most people don't know what's going on in the schools. They don't believe anything's happening. If anything is being taught, it's probably benign and minor. So the first thing we need to do as activists on this is we need to expose what's going on. So I've spent quite a lot of energy doing this. In Seattle, I did a Freedom of Information Act request a few years ago, and then all the work to make them fulfill it. And also a bunch of other research, reading through the entire sex ed curriculum, et cetera. And then my partner and I did videos just to share what's being taught in our schools. I then hooked up with Women's Declaration International, USA, which had volunteers around the country doing Freedom of Information Act requests. And we got and reviewed and compiled online examples of things happening in schools across the US, which you can view if you go to the Women's Declaration website, just to Google that, or get on there and look for their schools page, which includes a model Freedom of Information Act request and other information. You can also see on my Substack, caroldanso.substack.com, the article, The Anti-Science Disaster, which does a summary of what's happening. A second thing in the fight back that I've been part of is a demand for action signed by 20 people, which for Seattle is very good. It was our goal to get at least maybe 15, so we feel pleased. That was submitted to the school board. This is a 15-page document that explains what's happening on gender identity in the schools, explains why it's unacceptable, and says you have to rescind your policies and curriculum. So that was submitted on the 27th of September. There is an appendix that goes with the demand that details what's going on in Seattle schools, but it's of relevance to all of you because the same materials are used elsewhere. And I really do analyze the manipulation and other things happening. And it has an appendix, Appendix B, that I think will be of great value to you. Please look it up and use it. It provides extensive documentation, medical studies, data, backing up everything we say in the demand. Now, the school board has not done what we requested, which we're not at all surprised at. Here's a couple of the school board members giving their speeches before we were allowed to do our 2-minute public comments, telling people how awful we were. But we were not surprised by this. We knew that they wouldn't do what we wanted. And our goals were different and were achieved. We wanted to simply stand up and say, there is a direct fight back. This needs to happen. We wanted to produce thorough, cogently articulated cases and materials that everybody across the US can use. Please use them. We wanted to send up a flare to let other people know there's a resistance. And this has been wildly successful. We've had tons of people contact me when they read about this from inside the district and outside. And just the organizing to get the signers brought so many more people into our local network. We also just wanted to make an attempt administratively in case we sue, so we can say, well, we tried some other things. Another thing I've been involved in the fight back is protesting boys in high school sports. Because of our demand for action, I was contacted by ICONS, which is an international group of women athletes who are fighting to defend female sports. And working with women from ICONS and the parents of local schools they introduced me to, who are dealing with a boy running in cross country, I participated in protests, and I'm really looking forward to next steps we will take together. This is a picture from the Pasco State Championship a few weeks ago, cross country. This team is celebrating their second place trophy for girls cross country. They actually came in 4th place. This boy up in the middle on the top is why they came in 2nd place, stealing the trophy. So those are the things I have been involved with. And there is, of course, a lot more going on. I only have glimpses of it. And I'm looking forward to Aaron, who will have a lot more information. So there are people standing up and walking out in much greater numbers than we can achieve at this point in Seattle. On the right, we have Loudoun County, Virginia. Parents en masse protesting what's going on in the schools. At left, we have students walking out in Pennsylvania because they don't like people of the opposite sex in the bathrooms. There's litigation all over the place. It's great. Lawsuits are happening about schools keeping parents in the dark about their children transitioning in school. Child Parent Rights Campaign is representing this couple in Wyoming, for instance. There are also other kinds of lawsuits going on, including like free speech lawsuits. This family got $125,000 in damages in Vermont after their school disciplined them for protesting the fact that boys were in the girls' room. There's also a bunch of suits being brought by detransitioners, people who transitioned as children and as adults are trying to hold accountable the people who did it to them when they were children. This is Isabel Ayala, who is suing various doctors, and I am very excited about the fact that she has listed American Academy of Pediatrics as a defendant. And she's also listed that doctor who talks about chickens and suicide in the Matt Walsh film. So that's really fun to know. So far, these detransitioner lawsuits have not named schools or school officials. And I really hope that that will happen. If anybody knows anybody who is in a position to sue a school over what their part in indoctrinating them, please let me know. There's tons of other stuff. I'm sure Aaron will talk about this. I know very little about the legislation, the election work going on elsewhere. So what next? My thoughts on this include the following. In addition to trying to get detransitioners to sue schools, I would personally like to see litigation that doesn't just go after a piece of the gender identity indoctrination in schools, such as the secrecy with parents, but the whole kit and caboodle. In Washington State, our law says that they're only supposed to give kids medically and scientifically accurate information, and they're certainly not doing that. So it seems worthy of our efforts to explore this handle, the same sort of thing in other states, and other options for suing school districts directly. We need to keep doing all the other things that I talked about before. But to me, a top priority that we must all have right now in this fight is building our movement so that we have critical mass to stand up with people not having to be frightened. Like in Canada, when the million-person march was not shut down in most of the locations because there were so many people who had been organized to come out together. So we need to keep doing our public events, standing up and being seen so people can find each other. We also need to be doing quiet, behind the scenes, under the radar outreach so people know what's going on in the schools and elsewhere. I am desperate to talk quietly with small groups of teachers, school principals, school nurses, and if anybody has ideas of how to reach them to have those conversations, I would appreciate it. And I think this is also a time where, and I'm talking to myself here as well as others, if we have avoided conversations with certain friends and family members, and we can have those without losing a child as a result, I think it's time for us to stand up and talk to them whether they want us to or not. And I'm trying to do that in my own life. As part of building our movement, our numbers, we have to be organized. We have to do the grunt work of getting the names, creating the databases, and we have to do a much better job of coordinating between groups. I am part of so many different groups with separate lists of people, and we are largely not coordinated. So we really need to be talking about how to be less splintered and how to join together. Perhaps a joint meeting about litigation would be a starting place. Also, we need to, as we organize, we need to be very deeply committed to free speech and to not being part of the cancel culture ourselves. Working with people from across the political spectrum is very important on this issue. So I don't know if I'm over time. I just have one last thing I want to share with you. And that is my overall thoughts on this issue, because I have, in fact, spent my life focusing on getting sane environmental policies, on peace, economic justice. And a lot of my friends are really confused about why I am spending time on this. But the thing is, I'm working on this because I care about those other issues. To me, it is not a coincidence that gender identity ideology really rose up in the schools after Occupy Wall Street happened. People had begun to talk about how 1% of the 1% holds all the money and the power, and we can't get anything done in our world. Today, young people think that organizing for justice means organizing a mob to get someone canceled because they don't agree that a man is a woman. Gender identity ideology is fueling the complete evisceration of civil rights underway all around us. It's not the only thing doing that, but it is a major part of it. The evisceration of women's rights, gay rights, children's rights, freedom of speech, thought, and assembly. And what is happening in the schools is absolutely insane. How do we get to this point where kids are learning that men are women, that men have babies, women are men? People are cheering for the mutilation of children. How can anyone think that we can just pretend that madness is not happening? How can anyone believe that people they want to organize with on other issues are going to just ignore what's happening to their kids and grandkids on this issue? Kids are being inculcated into a cult that has terrible consequences for humanity. Kids who are uncomfortable with their bodies are being urged to be trans or non-binary and to view themselves as fragile, so that anybody who doesn't agree with them that they're a different sex is violent and bigoted and should be shut down. So they're combining in the miseducation fragility and authoritarianism. Other children are being taught to be obedient and docile. Cheerfully forfeit your words and your rights because that's the nice thing to do. Truly, George Orwell's 1984 is already here, and schools are a primary conduit of that. War is peace because men are women. Our words have been stolen. We're being required to use new crazy words. Children are taught to hate us, and hate us they do. Ending, I just want to share with you these faces of kids. Most of these people are high school students. I took this photo when they came out en masse in Tacoma, Washington in 2022, having learned about our Let Women Speak event. And they joined other young people and pushed into us and forced us out of the park, telling us we were Nazis and swearing at us. The police didn't come. The Tacoma School Board ignored our letters and statements. The principal was there and did nothing, and probably praised the kids when they got back to school. They undoubtedly think that they are civil rights activists. So this bears on everything beyond gender ideology. It is not a sideshow. It is not a diversion from more pressing issues. It is, in fact, one of the defining issues of our day that affects every other issue. And we, the people who notice how crazy what's going on in the schools are and have the courage to say it's crazy and to work with people we're told to cancel, we are the seeds of the movement we have always needed to address all the problems humanity faces. Thank you. That is the end of my presentation. I am now going to attempt to undo the thing, but I can't find the menu.
All right, there you are.
Anyway, thank you so much for the chance to share that with you. Start share.
Thank you, Carol.
Oh, good. You got rid of it.
Oh, yeah, worked. Okay, so the next speaker is Erin Friday. And she is a licensed California attorney, a mother and a wife. She's a lifelong Democrat whose daughter used to believe that she was a boy. And she co-leads the Western region of Our Duty, an international group of parents and allies who are fighting to protect children and vulnerable adults against gender ideology. She's on the executive committee for Protect Kids California that is promoting a 2024 ballot initiative to stop gender interventions on minors, prevent males from competing in female sports and entrance into female spaces, and to stop schools from socially transitioning students without parental knowledge or consent. So without further ado, Erin, go ahead. And we're seeing it, it's working. But
Here
you're
we
on mute, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Carol, so much. You covered a lot of things that I was going to cover, so I'm going to pivot ever so slightly. So things may not follow my PowerPoint, but that's okay. Because I don't want to duplicate because there's so much work that we have to do. So what I want to talk about is how we got here, just a little bit of history, because it's really important for people to understand that this didn't happen overnight. It happened over decades, and it happened very slowly and incrementally, which is the way we're going to be successful on our end, is to attack it incrementally. We are not able to bite off the whole enchilada, which is, you know, our all of our knee-jerk reaction is to end it right away with no holds bar, not giving an inch, but we can't do that. So let me go back and let's go to the history. Okay, let's meet Sheila. This is our friend Sheila Cool. She was the first openly gay woman, actually gay person, as part of the California Assembly. Back in, I think, 1997, she was elected, or 96. We would have been cheering her on. First open woman. But she is actually the mother of transgenderism for the state of California. She started it all. Yep, I see faces, apoplectic. Yeah, she started it all, and she knew what she was doing because she proudly talks about the bill that she passed back in 1999. It's a bill, AB 537, that brought sexual orientation into public schools. And what she did was she tied the teaching of sexual orientation, or the non-discrimination of sexual orientation, to suicide. Does this sound familiar to anyone? It should sound familiar. This has been going on for 20 years, that they have been tying teaching sexual orientation or transgenderism to suicide, and it's a lie. And we know it's a lie because suicide rates are at their highest across the country for children. Children aged 10 to 14 are up 40%. Suicides of 10-year-olds to 14-year-olds, 40% in our nation. Suicides among 15 to 24-year-olds are up 10% across the nation. So none of these bills have the intended consequences of preventing suicide. In fact, we're moving in the wrong direction quickly. So what she did was, very brilliantly, she tied discrimination to school performance and suicide, and this is how she got sexual orientation into the schools. And she tied it on the back of also hate crimes. So tying language together to something that most people will get behind: safety of children, stopping hate crimes, and this is how the opening occurred in California. And then she moved on from there. So what she did 5 years later was she changed what the word sex and gender identity means and made them synonymous. And the way she did this, again, was to tie to discrimination, hate crimes, teenage suicide. We talked about violence, and that suicide is the third leading cause of youth in our state. So this trope is 20 years old, of using suicide as a way to trans our students. Everyone here should be very aware that the gender dysphoric kids are not natural. It's very, very rare that a young child, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, is gender dysphoric. I mean, it was a tiny fraction of the population. Schools are now making kids gender dysphoric because it's planting a seed that they could be born wrong. So when anything distressful happens in their lives, they can then say it's because they were born wrong. So the young boy who will normally grow up to be just a gay young boy believes that he was born wrong. A girl who is attracted to other girls or is a tomboy will have that seed planted because her teachers will tell her that if she doesn't like girly things, that she must have been born wrong. We don't kill transgenderism until we kill it in the schools, because we're creating more and more dysphoric kids. We're creating the pipeline for medicalization. We're creating the pipeline for parents to lose custody of their kids. So let's go back. Let's go back a little bit to to Sheila. Sheila also, brilliant woman. She tied gender and sex into other discrimination languages by glumming on to how you would call handicapped people. Remember, we used to use the term handicap? She changed it to be disabled people, and then hid the transgenderism in that bill. We know how they do this. They do it with abortion, and we fall for it every single time. We Democrats, let me actually make that clear. I'm a Democrat of 37 years. I voted for same-sex marriage. I worked in the gayest law firm in San Francisco, not homophobic in any type, but this is how they trick us. It's very, very slick. They throw it into a bill that sounds good. Let's protect women's rights to choose. And then we're going to throw a little dose of transgenderism in there, and we fall for it. And we all fell for it. I fell for it. Admittedly so. I voted for all these Democrats that are passing these bills. Now let's talk about where it came in our school districts. In California, in 2012, we started to pass laws that required the schools to teach about transgenderism, transgender Americans in social sciences. There wasn't a lot of pushback when this was going on. Notice the highlighted words here, and I know Carol talked about this, that the California schools were required to accurately portray the cultural and racial diversity of our society, accurately. Let's see if they do that. So here's a class lesson for 5th graders, 4th, 5th, and 8th graders. This is talking about Charlie Parkhurst. Charlie Parkhurst drove the stagecoach for Wells Fargo. Famous woman. Now, this woman dressed as a man. She used a male name, and she lived with a woman. What was she? She was a lesbian. She was still a woman. It was the 1800s. She could not own property. She could not have a job other than being a teacher or a prostitute or a wife. So why do you think she dressed as a man? Because she couldn't have a bank account. Was she transgender? Nope. She was just a woman masquerading as a man so that she could have rights. But in California, they change the history and they convert this woman, who was likely a lesbian woman. I don't know that for a fact, but likely a lesbian woman, and they changed her into to be a trans man. See how that flip is done? And nobody knows whether it's accurate or not because, well, we can't exhume her body and ask her. So this is how they rewrite history. And this is in 4th grade. So they take powerful women and they change them into powerful men. As Carol talked about, schools are inundating students with everything transgender. First day of school, what's your pronoun? Kids don't even get an option not to tell their pronouns. These kids now, they have computer programs at the schools where on the first day of school, when a child says what their pronouns are or what their new name is, it goes into a computer system. Everyone in the school knows the child's new name, new pronouns, but the parent. It's designed this way, and you can even, it's called Aries, and you can, for example, my daughter was using a different name, and when the school sent an email to me, it automatically changed her name to her legal name. On her emails, it had her fake name. So tech is involved. all to lie to parents. Carol talked about the kindergarten lessons. I'm not going to go over these again, but this is how they plant the seed. Fourth grade or 4-year-olds, TK, is where they start doing these read alouds and telling these kids that they could be born wrong. And the kids believe it. There's a group of women who have transitioned their children. They're very wealthy in Hollywood, and they started a nonprofit called Indoctrination. They donate tens of thousands. Hello? They donate tens of thousands of books.
Rosita.
Hi, Rosita, can we get you to mute? Thanks. They donate thousands of books to school districts, and they pick on the poor school districts on purpose, because these school districts are thrilled to have free books. And I'll tell you, our Tony Thurman, who is the superintendent of schools in California, he was on the news last year donating Indoctrination books to the poorest schools in California, in Richmond, California, which are 90% Black and brown kids and have a 19% proficiency in math and in English. Instead of trying to elevate the school scores, he's indoctrinating them. It's more important because, of course, the books are free. Then in 2014, we have another bill, 1266. And this was the bill that Sheila Kuehl worked up to. She was the one who started with the sex and gender are the same. And this moved and permitted male bodies to come into female sports and vice versa, and male bodies to choose whatever bathroom they want. This is 2014. We all know the genderbread man, so I don't need to go on with that, but I just want to play this video. I want you to hear from a teacher's mouth how they lie to parents. Hope this plays.
Because I keep finding more and more resources at my elementary site. I teach part-time at an elementary site as an instructional coach, and I actually teach 6th grade core at our middle school in the morning. And so at my elementary school, the principal reads aloud in every classroom every month. And so once a year, we pick books that represent the LGBTQ plus community, and she reads them in, we have TK at our school, so TK through 5. And so they all get at least 1 month where they have some representation from the LGBTQ community. And so what we did was we broke it up. So books about gender, you can scroll through books about gender, books.
So there you have it, how cool. The principal, the most powerful person in the school, comes and reads to TK, 4-year-olds. And here she talks about how she tricks the parents.
So we still sent out permission slips, because at the end of the day, in order to get our club launched, the district office was like, you know what, you need to have permission slips. And we're like, okay, because what we want to do is get the club up and running. The second thing is we'll go back and see if we can revisit the permission slip issue, because again, middle schools and high schools don't need to have it. And if when we do come back to campus for in-person instruction, we'll probably have the clubs at lunch. We're not likely to have them before or after school. And so maybe we can get around that.
So she's talking about GSA clubs, which GSA clubs are no longer about, they're not called Gay Straight Alliance anymore. They're all about transgenderism. And Miss Saunders here is talking about the fact that she doesn't want to get permission slips from parents for their kids to be part of these clubs. She wants to do it at lunch so she can hide it. This is how you get the young kids and indoctrinate the young kids. We talked about the name and pronoun. Now let's listen to Christopher. Christopher wants to have these LGBTQ clubs for kindergartners.
It says, I'm wondering what a QSA or inclusion group might look like for younger elementary students. That question also came up in our group one. And so I was sharing with the group that in the research that Andrew and I both have done, that the age, little ones are feeling or become aware of their sexuality and liking, other folks as early as age 7. So we do need to be talking about GSA and LGBTQ issues.
So this guy is saying that kids are sexual at the age of 7. 7. Now watch these teachers and how cute they are, and who wouldn't want to join this group? They are 3rd and 4th grade teachers, and this video was played to every child in this elementary school.
I'm Donald, and I'm Mrs. Barbara, also known as Miss Temper. And we are the teachers running the Prison Club. Prison Club is a brand new club at John Baldwin this year. This club is focused on learning about and supporting the LGBTQ plus community. For a quick refresher, LGBTQ plus stands for.
So you get the idea here, the cutesy music, and this was played to every student in the school. Who wouldn't want to join this fun group? Everybody wants to join this fun group. This is the California Teachers Association teaching teachers how to make a GSA club. Just add kids. So they create the club, and then they find the need, or they find the students to join the club. As you may be aware, there was a lawsuit in California. Jessica Conan, she sued her school district for indoctrinating her child. She won, or she got a settlement of $100,000, but really it cost the school district probably $350,000 because of the attorney's fees. But at her school, the teachers were recorded saying that they created their GSA club that they called euphemistically UBU, and they spied on kids through their iPads to see which kids were looking at anything that was transgender related. And then they approached those students and invited them to their club. So this is how it's done. This is how the indoctrination is done. There is a guide that was written by the ACLU, National Center for Lesbian Rights, which has nothing to do with lesbians. It has everything to do with transgenderism, gender spectrum, and the Human Rights Campaign. And this policy or guide is called Schools in Transition. And this document, I encourage everyone to go ahead and Google and look at it. It will make you sick because what it does is it tells schools to create secret social transition plans for students, how to lie to parents. They use the word how to scaffold the child's transgender identity, that word scaffold, how to concretize, how to move it forward. It also talks about that the school should be prepared to testify against the parent who won't support their child's trans identity should there be a divorce or a custody battle. This is all in black and white, and it's on most school districts' websites. If you go deep enough into their website, you will see it. This was the start of the secret social transition plans. It all came out of the ACLU, who I used to write checks to, right? Which I bet you most of you did too. It also, see, here's the language. There are many student activities and lessons that can effectively scaffold a student's gender transition. This is the school doing medical interventions on a student behind a parent's backs. It says in that document that schools are the only safe place for kids. And it breaks apart, of course, the relationship between the parent and the child. Schools are the faucet. Schools have to be our focus. You do not have to have a child to fight against the schools. You do not have to be in the district to go to a school board meeting. You don't have to be a lawyer to appear at your school board. You get, depending on what school board you're in, 1 to 3 minutes to say your piece. You can go every week and start talking about this. Everyone needs to be held to account. Many of these teachers know what they're doing. Many of them do not. And they need to hear from us, and they need parents, and the parents need courage to show up at these school board meetings. And the only way they get courage is that those of us who can be out and public show up at these school board meetings and talk. I also want to encourage people to stop being afraid to be out in your real name. I know it's scary. I've been out in my real name for 2 years. I've been doxxed. Nothing has happened to me. They count on us to be fearful. They count on us to be silent. We cannot end this if we are not silent. And Carol, I cannot agree with you more. We need to link hands. I work with both right-wing, evangelical, very religious people, and very left people. It is the only way we are going to be successful in ending this, and it's the fastest way. We may not agree on, all the women's rights. That's okay. That doesn't mean we don't link arms. We may not agree on the language that is being used. That's okay. We have to link arms. We have to move quickly. In the state of California and in Washington state, and now Oregon, they are taking our children at the age of 12 in California. If we do not transition our kids can opt themselves into residential facilities and leave their families. It is all designed to get the kid who is gender confused, doesn't have supporting parents, and move them into a residential facility. Once they're in a residential facility, they are considered either runaways or foster care kids, and then they get to dictate their own gender interventions. So there's no minimum age anymore. We have to end this. We have to link arms. We are running out of time on the West Coast. We are really, really at a critical time and place. This is why in California, we have proposed a ballot initiative that will get boys out of girls sports, stop the school secrets and social transition of kids behind parents' backs, and stop gender interventions on minors. The language isn't perfect. The language isn't everything that we want, but that's okay. We need to start somewhere. Because remember, Sheila Kuhl, she started this in 1999, incrementally. Little changes to existing law, little changes. We have to do the same, especially if you live in a blue state. We have to move slowly and strategically to move the ball forward. Right now, we're not moving the ball in blue states. We are stagnant. We have to move forward. In order to do that, you may have to hold your nose. We need to vote out the Democrats that started this and are perpetuating it. It hurts. I never voted for a Republican in my life. But in 2024, I will. I will until they stop doing this. I have offered to do a commercial as a Democrat for whoever the nominee is for president. I don't care. I don't like Donald Trump, but I will support him if he will safeguard children and women. And we can switch later. But for right now, we have to link arms. We have to kind of pull up our stakes from our normal liberalism and move past it just temporarily. Because the Democrats aren't listening to us. They don't care. Only 3 or 4 Democrats have voted for the bans on gender interventions on children. That's not enough. They need to be punished for not listening to us. They need to be punished for not knowing what a woman is, and that we're not front holes, and that our daughters are not up for, for sale. So I'm going to end it at this, and I'm going to just tell you, go to protectkids.com. Later today, our petitions will be ready to be downloaded. If you are a Californian, please sign it and send it in. I need to collect, 850,000 signatures in the state of California to get this on the ballot. If we get it on the ballot, our polling shows that it will pass. We can get the boys out of girls' sports. We can stop gender interventions on kids, and we can stop these secret social transitions. We need to sacrifice. I know money is tight for everyone. I know it is. It's tight for me. I don't have a job anymore. This is what I do. I don't get paid a penny for what I do. But we need to donate to these causes in the blue states. Imagine for 1 second that California falls, that transgenderism ends in California, what that does to the nation. It ends it in the nation, and it may actually end it in the world. So if you can donate anything, donate to us, because I need to raise $8 million. It's a heavy amount of money, but I need to do it because there's not one blue state where anybody's going on the offensive. We're on the offensive in California. Everyone, regardless of what state you're in, should be supporting California's initiatives, because whatever we do will happen in other states. We created this in California. It does not end until it ends in California. And I'll end with this. This is what California is doing. California is protecting medical providers in other states that violate those states' laws. So if the medical provider does gender interventions on a child in Tennessee, where it's banned, and that medical provider can fly to California and get here, they get safety. Now, of course, they tied this law to abortionists. So they're going to split it, right? They want to split people down the middle. Don't fall for it. Abortion is never going to be illegal in California. It's just not. It's not. Same with Oregon, Washington State, and most of the blue states. You really don't need to worry about it. Don't fall for it. Vote on transgenderism in 2024. California is spending millions of dollars to advertise in other states, and let them know that if these kids want to get transgender surgeries, come to California. We're advertising in red states to do it. Nothing ends till it ends in California. So please go to protectkidsca.com. And even if the initiative isn't worded just the way you want it, there's a reason for it. Because our dear friend, Sheila Kuhl, she got sex to equate to gender in about 10 other codes. And so we've got to use the word biological sex. I know it hurts, but we have to use certain language to start moving forward back to reality. So that's the end of my presentation because I want to leave it open for questions.
Thank you, Erin. I was on mute. Trying to make sure I have the participants so I know who's raising their hands. But right now, we're open to Erin, I think you got something. Okay. We're open to comments and questions. Let me just start off and ask. I mean, let me make a comment first about the merging of the LGB with the TQ, which has completely swallowed lesbian and gay rights. But I do have a concern, not about the initiatives, because I don't think they really do that. I did read them. But just generally fight in the schools, fighting against gender ideology, but not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and making sure that same-sex attracted kids and teens are still protected and still can have support in the schools, and also that there can still be some sex education, because I think sex education is important. It's just, this is a travesty. It's not, it's sex miseducation, but real sex education that is age appropriate, I think, is something to still support. So anyway, that's kind of my question and comment about how we do that to protect lesbian and gay or same-sex attracted teens, and making sure they don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
What are you protecting them from? That's the question. What are you protecting them from?
Well, there's a lot of there's a lot of homophobia in society still. There's a lot of anti-gay prejudice, and so kids need to be able to be, like teens do develop sexuality. It's a process, but they do develop sexuality, and they should be supported. And they want to take a same-sex partner to the prom. They may need support for that, because there's still a stigma and discrimination. And that's one point. The other point is just sex education in general, that we need good sex education, not this, obviously. And just to be able to not have to, not throw out the good stuff with, overwhelmingly bad stuff. Is that clear? I don't know if Carol, did you have any, want to say anything on that?
Sure. Yeah, this is it's a very interesting area. That's a terrible word, interesting, but huge percentages of the people in groups I'm part of are lesbians who are there because of the destruction of gay rights, lesbian rights that they're experiencing.
Yeah.
I also agree we need to have some basic sex education. My personal experience is I got no information at home, and it would have been helpful to understand real basic information from school. And I we need to have some sex ed. I think that the schools should have some discussion of sexual orientation and of the existence of gender identity. But since they're very different, they have to be handled in very different ways. They should explain there are these people who believe that we should redefine the word woman and man, and they're called gender identity people, or whatever terms you want to, and explain that they exist. But I think the schools have to be actually very clear and saying, but the definition of woman is this science-based definition, and to not do things that condone or promote the particular religious faith known as gender identity. And with regard to sexual orientation, I mean, they certainly should have units that explain that there's same-sex attraction and opposite sex attraction, and bi and all those things. Where it gets tricky is, so you want to have representation for kids of the existence of these multiple kinds of families. And I think schools should not be presenting, I think they should have books like, Heather Has Two Mommies, because there's families like that, and that should be represented. But I don't think it's helpful for them to say, oh, and there are families where there's a trans mommy and a trans daddy, because that is basically telling kids that those people are the other sex. It's taking a particular belief of that family and treating it as they get like it gets elevated. I'm just kind of rambling because I am personally a little confused on this, because a bunch of the lesbians that I'm working with are actually concerned that too much sexualizing is going on, and that too much information is being shared too early with kids vis-a-vis sexual orientation. And they've seen how opening that door has led to really backtracking on gay rights. So
Yeah.
they want some limits. At the same time, I've had really interesting conversations with self-proclaimed right-wing conservative people that I'm working with who say, yeah, absolutely, Heather has two mommies, should be in the schools. We need to protect, we need to make sure that people see that there's different kinds of families. And so, basically, I want to have some kind of conversation where we talk about how do we still talk about sexual orientation and make sure kids are not being harmed based on their sexual orientation. But how do we not open the door to gender ideologues saying, well, if you do that, then you have to do this on gender identity. And I think there's a path forward. And I think we actually have more allies in the so-called right-wing community than we might think. There certainly are people who I totally disagree with, but I have found that some of the most active conservative women that I'm working with are really kind of gay rights activists as well as feminists. So I don't know. I know I kind of didn't answer directly. I think we need to have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Yeah, Erin, yeah, go ahead.
It's the age, the age is the most important thing. There's no reason to be teaching children anything about sexuality under the 5th grade. Zero. There's zero reason. You don't know if you're same-sex attracted at that point in life. You may go back in your history and say, I always knew. Well, I was in love with women when I was a kid because I thought they were beautiful and amazing, and I wanted to be the beautiful and amazing ones. And if somebody gave me language and said that means you're a lesbian, I would have said, I'm a lesbian, because I don't like boys, because boys were gross and yucky, and these girls were amazing and I thought they were beautiful. And so we're giving language to these kids when they can't possibly comprehend the difference of admiration and sexuality. I mean, listening to that man say that 7-year-olds are sexual made me want to vomit. They are not, and they shouldn't be, and they shouldn't be exposed to it. They need to be children first. There is time to teach kids about same-sex attraction. It is not in kindergarten. It is not in 1st grade. It is not in 3rd grade, because they don't have the ability to comprehend what sex is. So there is an opening. Look, again, I voted for same-sex marriage, so I'm not homophobic in any manner. And I agree with Carol. I work with a lot of right-wing people, and they are actually not homophobic at all. It gets tethered in. Into the transgenderism. And I'm sorry to say this, but we almost have to go and destroy a few things, get rid of the GSA clubs altogether, because they're not about being gay. They're all about trans. I study them. That's all they are. Trans flag, trans flag, trans flag. That's it. And if you happen to go in gay, you come out trans. Mm-hmm. The gay boys come out trans. These clubs are unnecessary. Certainly in California, nobody cares. Nobody cares if you're gay.
Yeah, I'm certainly hearing from some lesbian friends, those things were very good and useful, but they're gone. They got taken over and we can't have them back.
Yeah.
They're really focused on not empowering the gender identity folks to gain even more ground.
I have 3 people that I'm seeing that have their hands up, so we want to get some more feedback. I got Romy. I'm going to call on Romy first, then Olivia, then Fran. So Romy is first, and you need to unmute.
Yeah, there, I just did. Before I ask the question that prompted me to put my hand up. I just want to mention that there's one word that I haven't heard at all in this discussion, and I think it's a really important word to bring into this discussion, and that's the word trafficking. And when one of the people started talking about how poor people were in Richmond, I think that is part of the key, that these children are being channeled, I've forgotten the word, tracked into a life of being prostituted, basically, as transgenders or as whatever else. And I think that's an economic stimulus behind a lot of this that I haven't heard mentioned, but I think needs to be mentioned maybe in another presentation. And because I think it's really important is the financial backing of like the Pritzker
Yeah, I can
brothers and all of that.
briefly on that, from
Could you
personal
speak up?
I can speak briefly on that from personal experience, but yes, there's a real financial stake in these kids being trans. Pornography is, I think on Pornhub, transgender sex is number 3 or number 4 as far as popularity, and it's getting more and more popular. Keeping boys looking young with estrogen is for pedophilia fetishes. Pumping girls with testosterone when they are the women are the keepers of morality. We are the ones who say no. We can go to any bar any night, even over the age of 50, and come home with a man if we wanted to. It's easy. You pump a young girl with testosterone and all the no's turn to yeses. So yes, there is a sex trafficking component to this. Again, like I talked about the bills that have passed in Washington State, Oregon, and California, taking kids at the age of 12 or 15, depending on what state, and putting them into residential facilities. Well, we know what happens to those kids. They get trafficked. So it's all tied together. You're right. But we were talking about schools today, but if you want to ever have a program on the sex trafficking component, I know that very well. And you can look at the story of Sage in Virginia and see how it actually works in real time. This was a 14-year-old girl who was trafficked.
Thank you. Okay, so Olivia.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, the reason I wanted to ask a question was, has there been any attempt to correlate test scores in math and language with introduction of transgender in the curriculum? And as a teacher, that's the bottom line. If the test scores aren't up, we teach to the test. If they aren't up, then there's some questions. And I'm wondering if that has been asked, because I think that's a real point to bring up, that I would guess that in districts that are emphasizing all this transgender nonsense in the curriculum, their test scores are diving. And I think that's a weak point that needs to be brought up, especially when people are challenging school districts. So that's
Any comments before I turn to the next?
To answer that, I don't know of people investigating that, but it would be interesting. I do know that it's incredibly hard to even get a number in terms of how many trans identifying kids there are in Seattle, for instance. I mean, I know there's tons, and I actually have been able to discern that there's 1% of the Seattle school population identifies as non-binary, but I'm in battle with the school district now using our Freedom of Information Act, and they keep sending me stuff that doesn't tell.
Well, what I mean is the time that's taken up addressing transgender in the schools and all this stuff that you showed us at the beginning, that's at the expense of math and language, unless you're using some of that to address language.
Wait, Romy, we need to go to the next speaker though. So
Okay.
Yeah, you can look at when the laws were enacted, and you can go back in time and look at the test scores You don't need to do a request for records on this, and you can see where the school, the schools in your state, as their school proficiency starts to drop, it correlates to the more transgenderism that is brought into the schools. We did that in California. It's very clear.
Okay. All right, so Olivia's next.
Hi, thank you for this. I'm also a school teacher in Oregon, and I guess I wanted to quickly make 2 points. I kind of hear what somebody was saying about not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, although I hear the wisdom of what you had said in response, Erin. It is difficult because I'm seeing kids that have no language to describe same-sex attraction. They only have language to describe being trans, and it's a sort of like melding of these two things. There's no separation of them, and it's all the rainbow flag doesn't mean what it used to, and so if you hang it up, it's a political statement now rather than even a acknowledgement that there was a civil rights movement that was successful. Like in Black History Month, you might hang up something to acknowledge that there was this very important civil rights movement in our country. And now when you hang up the rainbow flag, it's a political flag now, rather than a flag of a successful civil rights movement. But I do also worry. I worry that that kids have no outlet to sort of decipher these things. It's a lot of work, obviously, because inside the school, they're being guided by, can you mute if you're not talking, because it becomes really distracting. I'm sorry, unless you wanted to say something to me. Because it's this army of letters, and the schools are getting guidance from organizations, perhaps third-party organizations that are advising schools on this. It's like you have to go back and break up those armies first, so anything that comes into the school is I don't know, a little bit more honest information. So I worry about that as well, because I'm worried that it's all going to tank the L and the G downward with it.
Mhm.
And I think that's a fair worry. But the other thing I wanted to ask you, Erin, if you know of any teachers that are pushing back, I want to start questioning. I want to start saying, I was given this training, but there's these other experts saying this. Can you explain why you're not presenting things as you ask me to do as a school teacher? I present two sides of something. Some people say this about Palestine, Israel. Others say that about Palestine, Israel. Some people say this about the migration into Europe. Others say that. I'm not meant to pick one side and run with it, but yet they've done that on this issue in particular. And I've had some pretty terrible training in the school, and also in terms of the subject that I teach, because it's a many-headed hydra. I teach a foreign language, and it's in the foreign language training as well, very, very heavily, and very well financed as well, especially the pronouns and all of that, really, really gender identity laden. So I don't know if you know of any teachers that are pushing back. I've tried to in workshops. It doesn't always go very well.
Mhm.
And also want to push back from a safeguarding perspective. So,
teachers are pushing back. And if you want to put your email in the chat, I can connect you with a teacher who's doing it in San Francisco. So imagine how difficult that is. But yes, they are pushing back. And in California and in other states, teachers are actually filing lawsuits also because they don't want to be forced to lie to parents. You are not required to lie to parents. And I think you can go outside of your curriculum to actually teach about detransitioners and about the medical harms that gender ideology is.
Because on one small thing, every year we are, as teachers, meant to do something called a vector training, and I did screenshots of it this year, where it's like, it tells you that you are meant to raise an alarm even if I go to the supermarket and I see abuse, and if I don't report it and it was found out later, a teacher witnessed abuse, even though it was not in my building, I can be held liable. If I knew about it from a neighbor, I'm a mandatory reporter. So there's this harm that's happening to kids as I see it. And I feel like who do you mandatorily report? The state, and the system too. But thank you. I will put my name in my email in the chat.
Are you in touch with the grants past teachers who were
Those were
fired and then reinstated?
I know Grants Pass very, very well. Yes, my parents actually live in Grants Pass, and I have met them for coffee before historically. I think those two women are kind of, I mean, they got beat up. They really did. And the climate's a little bit more open now, but they were treated so badly. And I don't know where they are in terms of even where they're working. I think that they just, I mean, it's exhausting to be the only two people fighting something. I am shocked because Grants Pass is actually quite a conservative town, but it's in Oregon, so the stuff is like it overwhelms everybody. But I have been in touch with them.
I mean, this is, I get comments all the time on my Substack from people who say, as a teacher, I wish blah, blah, blah. And I wish there was some central group to which teachers could be sent so they could find each other. And we need to talk about getting organized that way.
You'd be shocked how many of us don't agree, and we go into rooms and go, "Oh my God, that training," and nobody speaks up or says anything.
Right.
Very shocking.
Okay, so Fran is next.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So I'm Fran Luck, and I produce a feminist radio show on a leftist radio station, WBAI, which is mostly pro-trans. I'm the only one that even steps into this. And I hope you'll all support me if I get in trouble, which I keep expecting. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for excellent presentations about what's going on at school. I took a lot of notes, but I have a sharp disagreement with at least some things that Erin said about our tactics, which I think are very important, how we fight this. Right now, there is a campaign going on across California to recruit school board members to a whole bunch of very problematic right-wing ideas that includes being critical of critical race theory, which is in essence talking about slavery and actual history, being critical of anything political, so that might disturb a child, such as feminism, such as the idea of racism. This is a right-wing campaign against really telling the truth about American history, and it's very important we know of our history. And a guy named Kylie, who is a California legislator, has been recruiting people for school boards. There's an article that I posted about called "Conservatives Are Waging a War for Control of California School Boards." And it begins with, across California, conservative groups have leveraged parental angst to recruit candidates. Okay, and that's candidates who are going to then back a wide range of very right-wing issues. The right wing, as you know, may have many innocent people who can be pro-LGBT, et cetera, or LGB, but we're not talking really about a right wing that is individuals. We're talking about groups that have been committed to fighting against feminism, LGBT rights, and et cetera, and fighting for racism. I mean, there's everything that we know the far right to be, and it's been getting more and more power. So the groups are interconnected. They get their funding from the same sources, and they really should be looked at as one organism, not a bunch of separate issues. So when we try to separate the transgender issue from the rest of the issues, it doesn't work, because if we work with the right, if we work to build right-wing campaigns that aim at really taking away others of our rights, we are really cutting ourselves off at the knee. And I think we need to be very, very careful about that. I want to focus on a guy named Jonathan Zackerson, who I've seen with you, Erin, photographed constantly. And, I believe he is labeled as the spokesperson for Protect Kids California. Both of you are spokespeople together, and you're very much lumped together. Zackerson is one of these people who is recruited by this Kylie Republican who is vetting people to see if they're in agreement with a whole bunch of right-wing issues to be on the school board, and that's where he gets his clout. His other claim to fame was he started Reopen California Schools in 2020 at a time when the pandemic was raging. And if you go to his website, which is still active, you'll see all kinds of far right, anti-LGBT, and all kinds of stuff on his website, because that is who he draws, and that is who he is, and that is why he was vetted to be on the school board that he comes from. And I think that it is really a mistake to be working with somebody like this who is backed by who he is backed by. And I think it endangers a whole bunch of other issues, as I've said. And frankly, Erin, I was very upset when you said, I don't care if Trump is president. Very upset, because if Trump is president again, everything progressive is going to go. There are already plans in the planning stages for that. And we have to remember, as upset as we are and as concerned as we are about this, it is not the only issue. We can't have somebody who is really, you can really label a neo-fascist in that kind of control. We'll never see abortion rights, a federal codification of abortion rights. We'll never see, we're just going to go down the tubes in every way. It's more than I can prove in this little short window, but I hope people understand what I'm talking about. So once again, I think that FIST, as well as other organizations and individuals, should fight like hell. We can use what's going on with Sweden and Norway and Finland having backed off of the trans ID in schools and for young people. We can use a lot of stuff. We could do a lot of actions. But I think we should absolutely steer clear of building people like Jonathan Zackerson and others who are part of other plans to do away with other rights. We really have to have a very sharp analysis here. So I thank you very much. And since I addressed you, Erin, perhaps you'd like to talk about Jonathan Zackerson and his connections and why we should, ally with him.
There's a lot there, Fran, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to disagree with 100% of what you say. I know Jonathan very well, very personally. He's actually not even a registered Republican. He's an independent. He has a close family member who is a lesbian, who he loves dearly. So your facts are just wrong. And
can people just read the article? It really does back up these facts. I put it in the chat.
Yeah,
Sorry for interrupting you.
So why conservatives are going to the school board, and thank God for them. Okay, I wrote the parental notification policy that these conservative school boards are passing. I wrote it. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democrat of 37 years, never voted for a Republican. I have a child. This is why I'm like, if you didn't have a child who went through this, maybe people come by this by a different view. I get phone calls almost on a weekly basis from detransitioners who want to kill themselves. I get phone calls from parents who are losing custody of their kids. The status quo is not working. Voting another 4 years to have a Democrat as a president. I mean, I don't care if it's Mickey Mouse, as long as it's not a Democrat who is taking away women's rights. We put a Supreme Court justice on the bench who can't define the word woman. That is a problem. That is a huge problem. We have President Biden who says you need to transition your children. That is a huge problem. And I'm sorry I'm getting emotional here, but I need to be, because we're falling for it. We need to wipe these people out and rebuild our party as the party of rationality and of science, and we're not that party now. Title IX is getting changed right now to erase women. The foster care system is getting changed right now nationally to say that if you won't support the trans identity of the child, you don't get to be a foster care parent. That is happening under the Democratic Party. Hate to say it. DEI in school, critical race theory, spend some more time learning about it. Go look at the curriculum. It's all about transgenderism. It is not about saying slavery did not happen. This book is gay, is in our schools. No, you want to read it? I'm going to read it from it. Sex app tips. This is in 5th grader schools. This is how you find a lover online. Include a picture of yourself. This is how you post. Make sure you show great body, your great body, and put that I don't eat head if you don't give blowjobs and swallow. This is in our schools. So you talk about book bans. I want this book out of our school. This is not a ban. This is child safeguarding. So you're falling for it. You're falling for what they want you to fall for. This book needs to be out of our schools. It's not, and it's in our schools. Conservative school boards are passing parental notification policies that I wrote that say parents need to know if their children are gender confused. Parents need to be able to get these books out of their school libraries if they're teaching kids to do dangerous behavior, like finding a lover online. This is okay. The conservative school boards are not saying we hate lesbians and we hate gay people. You're falling for it. You're falling for it. You are. You're falling for it. I work with these people. I go to school board meetings all the time. All the time. They are passing policies that are not allowing GSA class clubs to happen at lunch so that parents are lied to.
Yeah.
Are lied to. So you need to spend more time learning what critical race theory is.
I'm sorry, I spend a lot of time on that. I'm a reporter and I can get challenged if my facts are wrong. I'm thousands of
Yeah, we
people.
should do it, yeah.
Listen, I just want to say that that it's just very, this whole thing is very, very contradictory. We really need to not go from the frying pan into the fire. FIST says it's a leftist organization. It needs to maintain that. Why? Because we are for people's rights and well-being, and not to be, we're not falling for anything. I study this all the time, and it's really bad to go into the right-wing milieu for so many reasons.
Let's, there's 5 people, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
And I want to say something too, but I'm going to be really nice and let everybody else, or be fair, and let everybody else go first. But then I want to go after the last person I see their hands raised. Okay. So
Can I just,
Chris is next. Did you want to say something, Carol?
Carol, can I say something?
Sure.
I just want to say that I left both the Democrats and the Republicans ages ago. Because, for instance, the Democrats never have codified Roe v. Wade, and oil and gas production is bigger than ever this year, all sorts of reasons. And I think we need to come out of this gender issue questioning, and I too have major concerns about critical race theory as it is being taught in the schools. And I have questions about the pandemic responses. And I think we all need to be challenging our views on things, including our perceptions of what people who label themselves as conservative actually think. Because I have had discussions with, the working class people, the regular folks who are showing up at these things. And we really do agree on a lot of things they're calling right wing. I'm saying, no, that's left wing. So, like the freedom of speech issue, it is my left wing progressive friends who are the most authoritarian people I know. So I think we need to shake up our views and be more than open to working with people, regular people who have different labels. And all of this, the only way we're going to move forward is if we do that and build a working class movement that does not advance the Democratic and Republican parties, both of which are corporate parties that haven't served our interests in forever. So anyway, we have a Democratic person speaking. We have a person who's like left of left, and I'm sure.
Excuse me, I'm not a Democratic person. I'm very critical of them. Just please do not misrepresent me.
So I was saying Erin made a point of saying that she's always voted Democratic. So we have a person who hasn't voted Democrat since I was probably a freshman in college. Anyway.
I'm the same way. Okay, so we have Chris next. Yeah. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Wow, it's hard to know where to talk or where to begin, but what I will say is that I've been in this rabbit hole for about 9 years. When one of my kids went down the rabbit hole and decided she didn't want to be her biological sex. And I've learned a lot in that time about how easily propaganda and words can infiltrate all parts of society, regardless of political party. And when medical institutions are willing to cut the breasts off of young women, they've lost their minds. When medical institutions ask for pronouns, they've lost their minds.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no going back. Once you remove your mammary glands, you can't get them back. And I stopped caring a long time ago when I had no place to turn, lost, like friend after friend was just going along with the tide of acceptance and tolerance, because in being part of the Be Kind Brigade. And meanwhile, my daughter needed adults around her to tell her she was good enough just as she was. And the adults and friends that I counted on failed. The schools failed. My medical institution failed. They stole my daughter's breasts. And so I don't care who votes for who. What I care about is making sure this thing ends. And that's what this initiative is all about, Protect Kids California. But if we don't all infiltrate the school boards too to change the system from within, whether you're conservative or extreme left wing, as long as you're protecting kids and their innocence and family values. And when did family values become a religious right talking point? It is not a religious right-wing talking point. That EdSource, I'm a trained teacher, and that EdSource article is a piece of garbage. And that woman writes for the Sacramento Bee, and she's, I don't know about her, but the Sacramento Bee is a biased organization that does not cover women's events in a rational manner. So it's disappointing that you're propping that article up, but that's a diversion. You know, I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on protecting kids, protecting girls' sports, and keeping doctors from sterilizing children. And that's what Protect Kids California is all about. And if we can't stand arm in arm with other individuals who have ideological differences in other facets of their life, we are not going to slay this beast. I'm sorry to be like loud and preachy, but it's so fucking it's lunacy, and we need to stop it.
Okay, so I have Lynette and then Max, and then I'm going to call on myself.
Hi, Ann.
I
think you've turned off my video, but that's okay.
turned off your video.
Yeah, that's okay.
Mine too. It won't let me turn it on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how that happened. I'll work on it.
All right, I'll turn it on, and if it comes on, fine. Thank you, Ann and Erin and all the women of FIST and Hugh. It's good to see all of you again, and thanks for having such a lively discussion. Obviously, people are mad at the Democrats and mad at Biden, and I am too, and I'm a lifelong Democrat. I am concerned, as I see Max has also posted in there too, that many are saying, well, screw it, I'm going to vote for Trump. And I'm like, well, let's rethink that just a minute. Let's backtrack up. You know, where we are in this point in history is there's too much riding on this next election to just have our one single issue be what drives us over the edge. Because I think Trump is dangerous, and I think we need to look at history, and we need to see what Hitler did in Germany. We need to look at Trump and take him for what he says he is going to do, not me, what he says he's going to do. And I think he's frightening, and I'm not going to vote for Trump. I think if you don't vote, it's a vote for Trump. I think if you vote for Kennedy, it's a vote for Trump. I think if you don't vote for Biden, you're voting for Trump. If you stay home, it's a vote for Trump. You may not like, I'll see if I can start my video. We may not like what's happening with Biden and his crew, and I certainly don't. I'm critical of him, but I'm not leaving. The Democrats are going to have to deal with me. I'm not leaving them. They're not going to drive me out of the damn party. I'm here to stay. So I think if we leave, then we don't have a seat at the table. Don't have a way in to talk to these people and make any inroads. I do think that we can attack this from school boards and from local elections. And I think we can work with conservatives, because I'm not a person who thinks all conservatives are bad. I think there's some good in there. You may have to root around a little bit, but I think there are some good conservatives you can work with. But I'm not going to tie my boat to them and let them sink me, because I think there's a lot in there that is not good for women, because I don't think they've ever stood. So I'm disheartened when I hear sort of a split that's taking place, and that we say, well, let's just all go vote for Trump. I'm like, whoa, let's wait just a minute. Let's not do that. Because this is a very serious problem. I do think the problem is in schools, and I do think we have to be involved with school boards and school meetings and that sort of thing. I don't have children, but I'm a former child. I'm not a school teacher, but I'm a former school teacher, and I'm a citizen in my county. So all of these things are interlocked, and I think that if we can form coalitions on some of this and work together in a meaningful way, we can eventually create a tide that moves us all forward a little bit. But I think being divisive on things is not going to work well for any of us. So I appreciate everybody's perspective on this and everything that everybody is doing. Now, I know Erin is working very hard. She and I talked some years ago when we were first starting out, and I know she has a lot invested in this, and I appreciate all the work you're doing, Erin, and all the work FIST does. Everybody is working very hard, and I appreciate that. But I just wanted to say, I hope you will vote for Biden. You may not like him. I don't like him. I'm mad at him too, but I'm going to not go away from him, because I don't think the answer lies in Trump. And I think stepping into the abyss is a serious mistake we could make as a country. So that's my 2 bits. I love you all. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so Max is next, then I'm gonna call myself then, because I didn't see unless you were up there before. But I'll do Max, myself, and then Michael.
Yeah, look, everybody here is against gender indoctrination. And I want to say, I'm a lesbian feminist. I've been fighting this since the 90s. I see a lot of people who have come lately to this issue, and they think it's the only issue, and it isn't. And furthermore, how we approach it matters a great deal as to whether we're going to prevail on it or not. We in the US are way far behind what's happening in Britain, where they're much more successful in imposing the institutionalization of these gender extremist policies. And the way that they're doing it is from the historic base of the feminist movement, not by lining up along with some right-wing organizations who are funded by big religious conservatives, the ADF, Alliance for Defending Freedom, and others, the Koch brothers, the Heritage Foundation, the Project 2025, which is scary as hell. This is basically the Trump program, and it is dictatorship. And so, electoral politics does come into this, because as soon as women who are rightfully enraged say, well, I'm going to vote for Trump because, Biden and them, the Dems are actually scared. They have started to realize that their kowtowing to this gender lobby is having blowback. People don't like it. People don't like what's happening in the schools. There's a lot of grassroots opposition to this. We need to build that without strengthening the right-wing narrative, which also hurts women, particularly with a program that is the official program declared by Trump and the Republicans: dismantle Social Security, Medicare, all the social support networks, deport immigrants. That is going to hurt women. We are facing multiple attacks on women, including gender dogmatism, including what's happening, thrusting sex offenders into the prisons and what they're doing in the schools. We're on the same page about those things. The question is, strategically, what do we do about it? Because they are attempting to put in a system of feudal patronage. If the Republicans are elected, they are already promising that they are going to get rid of the civil service and have instead the president appoint all these minions to do their bidding, which is Trump's wet dream. and concentration camps in the future, militarization of the police. These affect women as well. Okay, women of color in particular, Native women, Black women are going to be affected by the policies that are brought in the wake of those foolish votes for Trump. So, I'm really opposing that. And the anti-abortion element is another thing, because those policies are basically winnowing out women's ability to make a livelihood, barefoot and pregnant, and, no options, trajectory. Once you're pregnant and you can't get that abortion, it's a lifetime of poverty, a loss of education, a loss of self-determination. And those are issues that very much do come into play in this election. So I implore women, think again about this. I am as angry. I am more angry than you have been. I've been working on this a lot longer than those of you who are really bent on this single issue. It's damaging. We all agree about that. It's dogmatic, it's doctrinal, and it is based on gender stereotypes that originate in patriarchy. We don't want any of that. However, we have to look at the total picture, and the total picture for women. So please, please reconsider on this Trump business.
Okay, I'm going to call on myself. I don't think we're all going to agree on the 2024 election. I'm like Carol. I haven't been a Democrat since I was like 19 or 18. And I'm not going to start now. I have a lot of reasons for opposing both parties. But I understand there's a range of views, and we have to learn to work together, especially as feminists here. And I think that the key thing for all of us really is to build an independent movement, because really neither of those parties are our friends. Can't rely on them, and we need to create an independent movement. And I also think that, I am supporting the 3 initiatives, and I'm speaking for myself now, not for FIST, who hasn't taken a position at this point. But I'm speaking for myself. I do support the 3 initiatives. I think it's really important that the right wing doesn't get credit for that. I think it's really important that as a leftist and as feminists, that we are out there, on this issue, because otherwise, who's going to get the credit for saving kids? And it's going to be the organized right wing groups that are involved in it. Excuse me?
The left isn't supporting it. You're just saying that FIST won't support it. Put your name on
I
it.
didn't say, I'm sorry, you misheard me, Erin. I said FIST has not taken a position yet. I said, I have a position that I support the 3 initiatives. And so we have a group with a lot of different, we don't all agree. People in and around FIST are at this meeting. You could tell we don't all think alike. So we're going to have differences. I'm saying that I think the most important, I do support the initiatives. I think we all should get behind them, regardless of who we're voting for in 2024, because we need to create an independent force. And also that left-wing voices, whether they identify as Democrats or whether they identify as Greens or to the left of the Democrats or as independents, they need to be heard too, because the organized right will get the credit for what is a good thing. I'm saying I support those initiatives. It's a good thing, but I don't want it to. I don't think you either want it to appear as just a Republican initiative. It's not. It has huge support from Democratic voters, these ideas. And so, but I think it's important that people hear that it's not just conservatives that support it. That's what I'm saying. So I hope that was clear. So, okay. So it looks like next is Michael. And you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
My name is Michelle. There's no E in it.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's been misread my entire life. Not to worry. It's an unusual name.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't exactly know what to focus on because there's been so much talked about, and I have very strong feelings about all of it. But here is what I would like to say with regards to strategy, with regards to the Democratic Party. Now, I'm as mad as everybody is, as we should be, about the Democratic Party's wholesale embrace of trans ideology. But and I want to stay as far away from Republicans as I can. They have made it really clear their goal is fascism, and Donald Trump is their way of getting there. So just to be very clear on those topics, here's the thing. Okay, I'm almost 70 years old, and I come from a family of Democrats, and the Democratic Party has historically opposed, in opposition to the Republican Party, the Dems have historically drawn people who believe that we have ethical responsibilities to other people, other Americans, for whom who are dealing with discrimination, who are dealing with oppression, however, whatever language you want to use about it. And for that reason, it has always been the party of Black people. It has always been the party of immigrants, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's kind of the long view. The Dems are super, super big on doing the right thing to oppressed people. Okay, the trans ideologists have convinced the Dems by joining on to the to the LGB, God, even I'm saying it, by joining on that we are they, and they support us, we support them. And if you're going to be a good supporter of lesbian, gay, bisexual people, you also have to support trans, queer, that whole agenda, which we know is a canard. And from my point of view, there's a huge amount of work to be done talking to the Dem voters one-on-one, saying this is not our platform. You have bought the sparkly glitter trans package because you've been told that it is part of the good fight against discrimination, against harm to minorities, and all of that stuff. It is not true. And educate. And I know the difficulty I run into there, of course, is there's this massive wall where to even suggest that such a thing might be true is to get yourself silenced as a bigot, a transphobe, a Nazi, whatever. And that in itself is one of the biggest barriers that I see, because I truly believe that most Democratic Party voters would not be pro-trans if they understood that what they are supporting is not what the trans ideological movement is about. And I think that, given the election coming up, and given how many people are leaving the Democratic Party precisely because of its mindless support of the trans issues, I think that this is some really critical work to do, because we need to get the message to the people we elect that we are not on their bandwagon with regards to this. Okay, that's my piece.
I'm gonna choose Max again. Was there any other, because we're running kind of, this is really interesting discussion, but we're going past 2 hours already. So
I'm sorry, I didn't take my hand down.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Was there anyone who hasn't spoken who had their hand up that I missed? Because I thought I saw Tina, but then her hand was taken down. So okay. All right. So what? So what I'd like to do, is have final comments from the speakers. And so I'll have Aaron first, and then Carol. How's that? So Aaron.
Okay, so thank you for the lively conversation. I would ask each person here to go to their state legislature and go to their Democratic legislature and see how receptive they are to this conversation, because I have spent hours and hours in Sacramento talking to Democratic lawmakers, trying to convince them to take one bill to safeguard children, to safeguard women, and none of them have taken it, including the lesbian lawmakers. They will not even receive me. I go up there all the time. I know that there's a few people who are politically active here, but mostly we're not. Mostly we're not. And so you're not convincing the Democratic Party to do the right thing. We're complaining, and we're not doing anything to move the needle, and they won't receive us. I'm telling you, they won't receive us. The only thing that they will hear is when we cast our ballot against them. If you want to run against them and be a rational Democrat, I implore you to do that. We have somebody doing it in San Francisco right now, woman running against Scott Wiener, but that is not happening. And so we have to send a clear message to them. We are done. And if you don't have a child, who got caught in this, like Chris and I do, Chris's daughter has no breasts. We know. We have to do everything now to end this. Biden is a monster. Biden is saying that you need to transition your children. I had Child Protective Services come to my home to take my child from me. This is why we are at an inflection point. It is almost game over for us. You may not, look, I don't like the Republicans either. I don't. But they are the only party that is fighting for women and children right now. That's it.
Fighting for women?
You don't have kids.
Oh my God.
Like you laughed. Do you have any idea what's happening to our kids? Any idea that they're getting taken from their families? You don't know what that feels like. You don't know what that feels like. So we have to do really strange things. It's a strange world. It's an upside down world that we live in now. But if you're going to vote in the same people who have put men in women's prisons, who say it's okay to cut off girls' breasts at the age of 12,
Wage war around the world.
to take children from parents,
You might get us all blown up.
it's game over. Game over. I think you should reconsider. Just for 2024. Reconsider. Can we take 4 more years of it? Can we take 4 more years of men with penises in girls' bathrooms? Can we take more years of teachers telling our kids that they could be born in the wrong body? We can't take any more of it. So that's how I'm going to end it. You're going to vote the way you're going to vote. I hope you follow the initiatives. If the Democrats don't sign on to these initiatives, it is going to be a right-wing win, and they will get all the credit. They will get all the credit, and it will all be actually proper, because we're sitting on our hands and saying, we're not going to do anything. We need to do something. We need to do it today.
Okay, Carol?
Okay, I just want to encourage everyone to go to my Substack, which is caroldansrow.substack.com. Please use the resources there. There are the documents from our demand for action in Seattle. I think they will be of use to you, including in that work that many people are talking about doing, just talking with people. Show them the actual curriculum, show them what the studies actually say too. There's also a lot of other information there. I have a whole series called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Transgender Galaxy, which talks specifically about the hijacking of the LGB by the T, the hijacking of feminism by the T, the hijacking of movements for people of color and indigenous people by the T. So look at those and think of those as resources, but also scroll down further and please take a look at my writings on immigration. A complete report and analysis I did. I worked with farm workers, and what happened during the Democratic years was horrific and set the stage for what Republicans can do. And look at what I wrote about climate, including detailed analyses of why we are losing ground under Democrats. Please look at that stuff and think about the possibility that we really do need to move beyond the two parties and the whole being played by the parties that be being pushed, to choose between these two parties. To me, we've been losing ground since I was a child, and we now face nuclear holocaust,
Right.
at least 2 major fronts, and this happened under a Republican administration. And it will happen, under Democratic administration, and it will happen under Republican as well. So to me, I am always working on this gender stuff, which I've been doing since 2019 when I became aware of it, while working on the other stuff which means I'm
Mm.
working for system change, which means I'm working for building a movement that is free of the parties that have led us to where we are. Both of the corporate parties have done that. So in any case, please look at my website. It's not a website, it's a Substack. And please use those materials. A lot of work went into them, and you're linked directly to resources you can use in talking with people. And thank you very much to FIST for organizing
Thank
this.
you, Carol. It was great. Both of you. Thank you, Erin. Yeah, so we continue to have forums, but I think this was a really excellent discussion. And we need to continue to talk and discuss and debate and find ways of working together. So appreciate everybody coming. Thanks so much to our two speakers and to our active participants in this discussion.
Onward.
Bye, everyone.